Real-life crime drama being turned into a movie is always a weird topic. It's so intriguing and usually involves all the best elements of a great story, but it's also weird to use someone's death to make a profit, especially when you change and embellish details because you think their story's boring. Hello and welcome. Here I review new movies and television shows and try to release a new review every day from Monday to Friday. Today I'm going over Netflix's new film, The Stranger. It's written and directed by Thomas M. Wright and stars Joel Edgerton, Sean Harris, and Ewen Leslie. It's based on a real-life missing persons case and the subsequent investigation. This film is a slow, tense build-up toward a tragic conclusion. There's no break from the pressure, no comedic relief, just a seedy, dark mission to find out what happened to the missing boy. To quickly summarize the plot, Henry Teague is traveling on a bus when a stranger named Paul Emery starts to chat with him. Henry helps Paul out and the two quickly become friends. Paul gets Henry a job with a criminal organization and then disappears, leaving Henry in the hands of Mark. Mark is Henry's contact with the organization and handles all of his jobs with them. Mark is also an undercover cop investigating a missing boy. He bonds with Henry, hoping to get information out of him. Can Mark and his team find out what really happened to the boy? The real story behind this movie is fascinating, and the concept of the movie is too. However, the execution is bad, and the movie ends up feeling like a long, boring, and confusing mess. I'll start with the acting, because I think that's where the best work is done. The film revolves around two main characters and a cast of background characters that each get 30 seconds and a line or two. Joel Edgerton as Mark and Sean Harris as Henry Teague are both exceptionally good at their parts. Henry Teague is a truly haunted individual with a sick mind, and Harris nails both aspects. His 1,000-yard stare is practiced, and at times you can practically feel his confusion and guilt spilling out of him. Joel Edgerton starts off somewhat stoic, somewhat jovial, and over the course of the film slowly comes apart at the seams. During his scenes with his son, we watch as the mask crumbles and falls apart, and it's tragedy done right. He might be doing the right thing, but watching his heart break has us wondering if it's truly the right thing for him. The acting is really well done, and it's a shame the story isn't better, because they definitely could have done some amazing scenes with this cast. That said, we should talk about the story, because it's the main problem with this film. The story is confusing and poorly told. It's got a lot of problems, so I'll just start at the beginning and go through them one by one. At the start, it doesn't have a hook or inciting incident. It starts with a bunch of vague narration about breathing techniques and then throws us into the middle of the police operation against Henry. We're given no information, no indication of what's going on, and no reason to care about why they're investigating Henry. From there, they fail to establish the facts of the case in a coherent and digestible way. Instead, they feed us a random mixture of Henry and Mark meeting new people and having ominous conversations about the organization, and Mark meeting with his police handlers. This is interspersed with a different timeline that involves two detectives investigating the missing persons case. In each of these scenes, we are fed the story in tiny scraps, and they manage to drag this process out for over an hour. It's painfully slow, and I was forgetting pieces of information before the end of it. They also don't do a great job of establishing why Henry feels so much trust towards these guys. All they ever do is question his loyalty and have him meet with new people. He does one actual job for them, and it's near the end of the movie. He and Mark don't hang out outside of work, and even when they're together, they're not exhibiting good chemistry. I just didn't get why Henry would trust them. They didn't spend enough time establishing a relationship between Henry and Mark. The entire film feels like a jumbled mess that's hard to follow, and it isn't that interesting. The production quality doesn't help either. The soundtrack is made up of anxiety-inducing boilerplate tracks that are looped and overused. It was annoying and grating on my sanity, especially given that nothing exciting actually happens in this film. The movie also feels needlessly artistic. For example, what was the point of the breathing technique narration being repeated over and over? It wasn't relevant to the story, and it's not connected to anything. That and the random dreams that kept happening are never really explained, and just feel like random noise added to make the film feel more populated. The lighting in the film is extremely dark, and it's hard to make out what's happening on screen most of the time. The entire movie is like this, and while I get they may have been going for a certain seedy atmosphere, it doesn't look good. This film is almost 2 hours long and doesn't have a coherent narrative. It has time skips that don't make any sense, an annoying soundtrack, and a story that's poorly told. No matter how good the actors are, the movie is only as good as its writers are. 3 out of 10.